What's up, everybody? Welcome in to the Philly Sports Power Hour with Bill Colarulo on this Thursday, this rainy April. If anybody's here in the chat, if you actually went to that Phillies game last night, let me know because that was crazy. I want to talk about that. I think that was just wrong what the Phillies did yesterday, forcing that game to be played, but we'll talk about it. Also want to talk a little NFL news. Big trade yesterday. The Buffalo Bills sending Stephon Diggs to the Houston Texans. We'll do a little Sixers talk, a little Flyers talk. Maybe we'll get into the NFL draft if we have time. But we're going to be joined later on in the show by Kayla Santiago. Usually she joins us on Wednesdays, and Farzi joins us on Thursdays, but we flip-flopped it this week because of scheduling issues. So we got Kayla coming on. I'm really excited to talk to her about the Sixers. If you follow the show, you know she does a great job covering the Sixers. And if you're following along on TikTok, we bring her live on TikTok as well. So that'll be good. But let's get a little roll call in the chat today from the Power Hour crew. I see Fanny Eagles fangirl in the house. Bry Guy in the house. Checked out the draft special last night. Appreciate that. Robert Temple. Jason A-Team. Need a Sixers win tonight. We're going to talk about it. Yes, we do. Kyle Kokorski. Draft is 3 weeks from today. You are correct, my friend. It's like Christmas Eve for a lot of us Eagles fans. I love the NFL draft. Should be a fun 3 days in Detroit. Who else we got in the house? My man flexing and stepping, as always. Chuck Hutton, Twiz, Slimville Slugger in the building. Bleed Green. Adams Exploits, Carlos Drew, Jackson, Decoy Gaming. We got a whole crew here today. Big D, Wolverine, MC, Cody. Love it. Absolutely love it. We got Kevway54 checking in on TikTok. Gary Williams checking in on TikTok. As always, good to see everybody. Kevway says Howie's going to cook in the draft. I actually think Howie's done a better job over the last couple of seasons. But the one area he has struggled as a general manager has been in the draft. So my confidence level in Howie when it comes to the draft isn't that high. And we'll talk about it because I want to – Dave Zingaro did a nice article today about all of Howie Roseman's draft picks in the first round since he's been the general manager. So we'll go through those as well. But let's talk about the Phillies because that was ridiculous yesterday. Oh, how about it? We got Michael Brennan checking in on TikTok from the United Kingdom, an Eagles fan sending the love. Love it, man. Jim Joyce, it's a do-or-die road trip for the Flyers. Big games. It's a fun time right now to be a Philly sports fan. I know it hasn't been a great week and a half. The Phillies didn't start out strong. The Flyers have been losing some games. The Sixers had dropped some. But right now, you got Embiid back. They're on that push towards the playoffs. The Flyers have 6 games left. They're on their push to the playoffs. You got the Phillies almost every night. They're off tonight. And we got the draft coming up. So it's an exciting time. If you like sports, this is an exciting time. But I want to talk about the Phillies because I thought that was ridiculous. And if you disagree with me, let me know in the chat. But this game was originally scheduled for 1:30. They announced they're going to push the game until 4 o'clock. So now you've delayed it 3 hours. But you gave people enough time, I guess, to rearrange their schedule. But anybody who was in the city yesterday, I'm driving to Bala Cynwyd yesterday in the rain. I'm thinking, there's no way they're playing this game. It's cold. It's windy. It's raining. And then 4 o'clock comes around. And they delay it again. And then they delay it again. And they don't end up throwing out the first pitch until 8 o'clock, 7 hours after it's originally scheduled to play. Why? Why did they have to force that game in yesterday? Both teams have off today. The Reds and the Phillies both have off today. Why not just call the game early in the morning? So everybody still gets their rest day. They just get it on Thursday and you push it till Friday. It's ridiculous last night to make fans sit through a 4-hour delay. Now, they did close the upper deck last night. They wouldn't let anybody up there, and you could really sit wherever the hell you wanted. But who would want to sit through that game? Weather was terrible. I don't understand why they do that. And then I just heard from somebody over at the Fanatic that they also stopped with the beer vendors in the second inning last night because the beer vendors were there for so long, I guess, because of the delay, and they pay them by the hour. They stopped walking around with beer. And now I got N Shuts on TikTok saying, is this what Philly fans are doing now, making excuses about the weather? No. I'm not making an excuse for the team. We'll get into the team in a second. I'm not making an excuse for the team. I'm talking about why the Phillies wouldn't just call that game because of the fans. And it's not just the Phillies. It's the Major League Baseball. But why would you put your fans through that when both teams have off right now? Both teams are off today. Just do the game today. Ridiculous. Was there anybody here, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, who actually went to the game yesterday and sat through that? Did anybody? Crazy, man. If you did, hats off to you. But I wouldn't have gone. I love the Phillies. I'm not sitting through that. No way you're making me sit through that. And if you waited around, if you actually waited around 7 hours until the first pitch, it wasn't worth the wait. Wheeler did what he always does. Wheeler delivered. 10 strikeouts last night for Wheeler in 6 innings. Only 1 earned run. End up giving up 3 runs, but only 1 of them was earned. Only 3 hits. Now through 2 starts, Zach Wheeler's pitched 12 innings, has an ERA of .75, and is 0-1. Can he get some run support, please? I know it's only 2 games, but can he get some damn run support? So Barbara Carroll says on YouTube that it was the Phillies who were the ones who insisted playing because they wanted the off day. That's what's been reported. Robert Temple says, wasn't there a wedding at the bank? That was reported, but then the Phillies released a statement saying that was not true, that there was no wedding there. So who knows, man? They just shouldn't have played the game. But Wheeler pitches a gem again. No run support again. Phillies lose 4-1. Their only run came on an absolute laser of a home run from Kyle Schwarber. And you look at the season so far, outside of Bryce Harper's 3 home run night, the one positive you could find from the offense has been Kyle Schwarber. First of all, he looks leaner. He looks like he's in better shape. And he's batting .280 right now. For Schwarber, that's like batting .400. He's got 7 hits, and only 2 of them are home runs. So Schwarber looks good. But otherwise, bats were completely cold last night. Speaking of cold. Completely cold. Turner 0 for 4. Harper 1 for 4. JT 1 for 4. Bryson Stott 0 for 3. Nick Castellanos 0 for 2. Cassie's batting .150 on the season. Brandon Marsh 1 for 4. Whit Merrifield 0 for 4. Batting .143 on the season. And then you got Johan Rojas 0 for 2. Batting .067. So hopefully they can get it together. It's still early. I'm not panicking. And I will never question Bryce Harper again if you weren't following the show yesterday. Never question him again. But they're off today. They start a weekend series tomorrow against the Washington Nationals. Aaron Nola will be back on the mound. Let's hope he can rebound after a pretty bad first start. And although the bullpen struggled, I still have confidence in this bullpen. There's still a lot of guys who proved it last year that you can trust them, but they haven't looked great. But let's talk some NFL real quick. So I absolutely hated the Haason Reddick trade. As you know, if you follow me, you follow this show, you know I did not like the Haason Reddick trade. Well, how about the trade the Buffalo Bills made yesterday? To me, this just signaled how much they must not like Stephon Diggs off the field. Because you trade Stephon Diggs to the Houston Texans for a 2025 second-round draft pick. So not in this year's draft, next year's draft. You get back Stephon Diggs, and you get a 2024 6th and a 2025 5th. But listen to these stats of Stephon Diggs over the last 4 seasons. Last year, 107 catches, close to 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns. 2022, 108 catches, over 1,400 yards, 11 touchdowns. 2021, 103 catches, over 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns. And in 2020, 127 catches, 1,500 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Those are his 4 years in Buffalo. But Buffalo was so fed up with him that they decided to take that stat line over his 4 years in Buffalo. They take on a $31 million dead cap hit and traded him to Houston. So that, to me, tells me everything I need to know about what the Buffalo Bills thought of Stephon Diggs. It's actually going to cost them $4 million more on the salary cap this season by him being off the team. That's insane, man. That is insane. So Houston, though, we'll see. Look, their quarterback looked like an absolute stud last year. And I don't expect him to have that sophomore slump because what he did as a rookie, you just don't see. But let's see if he can do it again because they are going to be absolutely stacked on offense with all the weapons they have. So it'll be fun to watch. But the Bills, man, you talk about bad PR. I'm upset with the Eagles right now about trading away Haason Reddick. The Buffalo Bills, they just hit their fans. They just hit Bills Mafia with that jacked up seat license fee for season ticket holders. Buffalo was already angry. And then you turn around and you trade away your best wide receiver. So fans in Buffalo can't be happy. But C.J. Stroud looks like the real deal in Houston. But let's talk some Sixers real quick. Back in Miami tonight, Embiid is questionable. Not a surprise. Probably have to see what the swelling's like on the knee. We'll talk to Kayla Santiago about Embiid when she joins the show. But Tobias Harris, Tyrese Maxey, and Mo Bamba are all questionable tonight as well. No DeAnthony Melton, no Robert Covington. Again, they've been out for a while. But this is a big game for the Sixers. The Sixers right now are in the 8th seed. They sit a game and a half back of both Miami and Indiana. So this game means a lot for the Sixers tonight. And let's see if the big man is back in the lineup, Joel Embiid, and what he looks like in game 2. If he looks any better than he did in game 1 as far as conditioning goes. But hopefully there's no setback. Hopefully his knee's okay. Hopefully it didn't swell. So I'll keep monitoring that. We'll find something out probably today. But we'll talk to Kayla about that to see what's going to happen with Joel tonight. Then we got the Fly Guys. They're off again tonight, but back in action tomorrow. This is a big stretch for the Flyers. We got on TikTok talking about big stretch for the Flyers because they are only 6 games away from the end of the season. They sit there as 3rd in the Metro, but they're only a point up on Washington, and Washington has 2 games in hand. So if you guys like hockey, tonight, Washington versus the Penguins. What we don't want to see is a 3-point game because Pittsburgh's still in the mix too. So you don't want to see an overtime game where both teams are getting a point at least. I'd like to see the Penguins beat the Capitals in regulation because Washington still has those 2 games on the Flyers. So this is one of those 2 games in hand. So that'll be interesting to see. But we're going to bring Kayla on shortly. But before we do, my man Kyle in the chat was talking about the draft. What are the Eagles going to do? So I did a draft special last night with Andrew DeCecco, who's always on Birds 365. Andrew does a nice job. And we were looking at what are the biggest areas of need for the Philadelphia Eagles in the draft. Now, DeCecco says it's corner. For me, I'm not sure I agree that it's corner. I wouldn't be angry if they drafted a corner in the first round because I do think they need to continue to develop young talent. I like Keely Ringo, as you all know. I'm excited to see what Isaiah Rodgers does if he gets reinstated. I'm excited to see what Zach McPherson does if he's healthy coming back from that Achilles tear. So if they go corner, I'm not going to be upset about it. But for me, I look at that defense, and they may need to draft an edge rusher. I know they got Bryce Huff. I know they have Nolan Smith. But Nolan Smith is a big if. I'm not ruling the guy out. I'm not saying that Nolan Smith is definitely going to be a bust or that he's definitely going to be the next Haason Reddick. We just don't know what we have in Nolan Smith. So I wouldn't be angry if they go edge rusher either. But I'm going to say a position that I think they could go, and I know it wouldn't be the sexiest of picks, and that's offensive line. It makes a lot of sense if the Philadelphia Eagles took an offensive lineman at 22. Especially with how deep this draft is. And we're running out of time before Kayla jumps on, but we'll continue to talk about the draft. I'll get into all the prospects of who I like, who I don't like. But I could see them going offensive line. It makes a lot of sense. You know Lane Johnson's getting older. You lost not only Jason Kelce to retirement, you lost Sua Opeta, you lost Jack Driscoll, who I know they're not stars, but they added a lot of depth to your offensive line. They added that stability when players get hurt that they could step in there, and they were versatile. They could play both guard positions. Driscoll could play tackle. So I wouldn't be shocked if they go offensive line at 22. Not going to be angry if they go edge. Not going to be angry if they go corner. Now, the dream, I know this would be a luxury, and I don't think it's going to happen, but if Brock Bowers, the tight end, somehow slid down the draft board, and you could get him at 22, not going to happen. He's going to go before that. But, I played tight end in college, so I'm always biased to the tight ends. But if they don't take a tight end at 22, which I don't think they will, be on the lookout for them to use either their 50th or 52nd pick for a tight end. You've all heard that stat that when they drafted Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz was younger than Goddard is now. When they drafted Zach Ertz, Brent Selleck was younger than Dallas Goedert is now. So they're going to go tight end at some point in the draft, I would think. But, man, I'd love Brock Bowers. He's just not going to be there. He's not going to be there. But there's some others, and we'll talk more about particular players. But you look at what Howie Roseman's done. So Howie Roseman has picked 13 times in the first round as general manager. 13 times. He didn't have the 2015 season because that's when he was in a storage closet somewhere. But his 13 picks, he's taken an edge rusher 4 times. Brandon Graham in 2010. Marcus Smith in 2014, major bust. Derek Barnett in 2017, who I think we could say is a bust. Whether he's a decent player or not, certainly wasn't worthy of that first-round draft pick. And then he took Nolan Smith in 2023. There's still a question mark there. So the only one that turned out not to be a bust was Brandon Graham. And he didn't contribute right away. Then you go, the position he's taken the most after edge has been defensive tackle. They went Fletcher Cox in 2012, legend. They went Jordan Davis in 2022, who I still think the jury is out on. And they went Jalen Carter in 2023, who looks like he's going to be worthy of that 9th overall pick. Next would be offensive tackle. They took Lane Johnson in 2013, absolute beast. And they took Andre Dillard in 2019. Was a nice depth piece for you, but not worthy of a first-round draft pick. So he was, I guess you could quote-unquote bust. They also took wide receiver 2 times. Hit big on one, Devontae Smith in 2021. Missed massively on the other, Jalen Reagor in 2020. And then they went interior offensive line 1 time when they drafted the fireman, Danny Watkins, in 2011. Disaster. And then 2016, they took a quarterback, Carson Wentz. So, still worthy of that pick because I don't think you get the Super Bowl if Wentz didn't have the season he had. Not sure he would have won the Super Bowl that year, but if he didn't have that season, he's not winning the Super Bowl. But we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to be joined by the one and only Kayla Santiago who I'm sure is so excited to talk about the big man, Joel Embiid, coming back. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports, and certainly the easiest when you're watching the NBA. And the NBA playoffs are almost here, and you can win money making picks. What are you waiting for? Sign up on UnderdogFantasy.com and use the promo code WIN. An Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN. Get ready for the NBA and get ready for the NBA playoffs. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer three major services, the first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back into the Philly Sports Power Hour with Bill Colarulo. Appreciate everybody here. Appreciate all the engagement in the chat. People talking about Carson Wentz. And real quickly on the whole Brock Bowers thing, I don't think he falls. I was saying that would be my dream. As a former tight end, I'm always biased to the tight ends in the draft. And Brock Bowers is an absolute stud. So I don't think he falls. I don't think he falls out of the top 15. But if he did, Howie Roseman better run to that phone to call that draft pick in. But now we're going to do some Sixers talk with the one and only Kayla Santiago. Let's bring Kayla on the show. If Xander's paying attention. There it is. There's Kayla. What's going on, Kayla? How are you today?
I'm great. Can't be any better. You see all the Sixers, Phillies, Eagles merch behind me. I mean, it's just been a good few days. I feel like my heart is healed right now after watching Joel Embiid the other night. So it was really, really cool to see him out there, and I'm feeling good. I'm excited about it. I'm not getting my hopes up too high, but it's nice to see the Sixers be able to win a basketball game with him on the floor once again.
So Kayla is a true 4-for-4 fan. So first of all, before we even talk Sixers, before we even talk about our Philly sports teams, how awesome was Iowa, LSU, women's basketball? I know you were tuned in.
Yeah, I think that was one of the best things I've ever seen. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. I mean, Angel Reese had a really, really good first half, and then Caitlin Clark really took over in the second half. It was 12.3 million viewers, which is really, really awesome for women's basketball as a whole. I mean, I absolutely love it. Those two ladies, I think, out of really all the college basketball players, you look at Paige Beckers as well, but those two ladies really are the reason a lot of people are watching right now, whether it's the rivalry, whatever it may be, the talk around them, or just their play in general. You can't tell me Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark cannot play the game of basketball and can't play it really, really well. So I absolutely loved it. And it was really cool because, you know, we were at work, we were getting ready to do our show, and all the guys in the office too were also locked in, tuned in, all hyped. So it just goes to show that a lot of people are starting to really get interested in it. And it's really cool to watch that and see, you know, these two ladies especially be able to take the league by storm. And Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, well, they're going to play pro next year. So, you know, hopefully that translates over to WNBA as well. But I loved it. Long story short, it was amazing. It was everything I expected and more.
Yeah, now I can't pretend that I watch a lot of women's college basketball, but I was tuned in. There were too many things to watch that night, though, because you had them on, you had the Phillies on, we had the Flyers on. There was a lot going on. But you mentioned the WNBA, and I know you and a few other people on Twitter were saying, hey, we need a WNBA team in Philadelphia. Oh, yeah. Now, where I could see that potentially happening is because the question is, well, where would they play? Mm-hmm. But if the Sixers do, in fact, open up a new arena in Center City, well, now the Flyers and the Wells Fargo Center probably need another tenant in the building. Could that pave the way for a WNBA team here in Philly?
I mean, I would love it. I think that the city would really love it too. And I think women's basketball is just on the up and up, especially, you know, I think Sabrina Ionescu, when she played at Oregon, kind of started that, you know, her connection with Kobe Bryant. She goes to New York Liberty. And now you've got Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese both being in the draft. I mean, this is one of the deepest draft classes for the WNBA of all time. So being able to see this, and there's a lot of WNBA teams that are really trying to revamp their systems, whether it's their coverage, whether what they're doing, whether they're, you know, they're just trying to really, really focus on revamping their teams, their programs, their organizations, because they just see how big it's becoming. And it's really good, you know, for the woman that played in the WNBA, for the ones coming in right now. And then after this, you have Paige Beckers following right behind Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. She is going to stay in college for one more year, but I would love it. I mean, I've been calling for it forever, so I think it would be really cool. And if you want this league to kind of blow up, Philadelphia is the perfect place for it because everybody knows the Philly fans are loyal. They love their sports. And hey, why not put it out there? I mean, I was at, you know, the Phillies game the other day when there was the Flyers and the Wings happening, and people are super hype about the Philadelphia Wings. It's so awesome, that indoor lacrosse league. I really like it. But when you bring a sport like that to the city that loves sports, people are going to rally around it.
So Crawley asks, how much does a max contract get you in the WNBA? So I just looked it up. The highest paid WNBA player is Jackie Young in Las Vegas, and she makes $252,000 a year. So not great. Bad. Not great. The revenue obviously has to increase. Mm-hmm. But let's switch over to the NBA, because I don't know a bigger Sixers fan than Kayla Santiago, losing her mind when Joel Embiid was announced that he was going to be in the lineup. So let me ask you, first of all, how do you think he looked in his first game back against the Oklahoma City Thunder?
You know, to me, it was as expected. He wasn't 100%. You could tell that he's really trying to get his conditioning back. And I know everybody says, well, he's been working on his conditioning nonstop, but it is completely different. We say it with every single sport, with football, with basketball, from when you're conditioning, when you're practicing, to conditioning in a real game and having to play a lot of minutes. He played 30 minutes in that game. So that's a lot for his return as well. And I know he had that minutes restriction, but you look at it, I think he was okay. I think definitely conditioning needs to get up there. You could tell that, I think mentally sometimes, that he was nervous about coming down on that knee. And there were a few times where he was the only defender back on a fast break. And I said, please don't do the chase down block. It's your first game back. Just be a little bit more careful than maybe you normally would. So I think for me, you could tell that, you know, he wasn't trying to get those chase down blocks. He was trying to favor his other leg a little bit. It's what I expected, to be honest. What I didn't expect is to have the game-winning steal and the game-winning free throws. I can tell you that right now. So I also think just having him out there for the entire team, you saw Tobias Harris play a little bit better as well. I think having Joel Embiid out there it's just a difference maker in terms of just the presence he has in the middle, the pressure that he takes away from the guard. So it was cool to see also Kelly Oubre still being able to kill it out there. He's been doing a really good job. And we've talked about that, saying, will Joel Embiid be good for him, be bad for him? It's one game. Overall, though, I think he looked okay. You know, I'm a little bit nervous of the playoffs being so close by and the Sixers most likely falling into that play-in game. But I think he looked okay, probably about 50%.
And you mentioned Kelly Oubre. You've been high on him since they signed him. And the way he's been playing over the last 15, 20 games has been really impressive. So if Joel is healthy, and I know it's an if, but if Joel is healthy and can get into game shape by the playoffs, and you have a guy like Kelly Oubre playing the way he is, and now you've added Kyle Lowry and Buddy Hield and Campaign, how far can this team go in the playoffs?
I think it's going to be tough because you look at the Sixers right now where they're at currently. They could get to the 6th seed. A lot of stuff has to happen. I mean, a lot of teams have to lose and the Sixers have to win out essentially. But I think for me, the toughest thing is that first round matchup, not only is it going to be really tough based on where they're seated, it's going to be physical. I mean, they could get to the second round and win the second round, but I think that first round matchup, and they're really, really going to be maybe out physical in some case scenarios. So, you know, I want to say Eastern Conference Finals, and of course that's my hope, but I think right now with Joel Embiid, I think it depends who they play in the second round, who they play in the first round. If I'm going to be realistic, I think this may be another year where they have possibly a game that goes 7 games in the first and maybe gets knocked out in the second based on how physical the first round was. If I'm being hopeful, Eastern Conference Finals, if Joel Embiid can be 100%, I just don't see it happening. I know that he's trying to get better every single day, but I think it's tough when you're coming back from surgery and you have a few games before you get right into the playoffs in a really, really, really tough first-round matchup. By the way, you have 1 game to win the play-in tournament as well and an opportunity, you know, to play in that other game as well if you're the 7-8 seed and try to win. But you have 2 games to win to get into the playoffs. Yeah. So, you know, realistically, I unfortunately, I don't want to say it because it breaks my heart. And this was the year I was excited. Joel Embiid was having a fantastic season. But realistically, I just think with the play that he's not 100%, probably second round, maybe even first, depending on who they get.
So there's still a small outside possibility that they could be a 6 seed. It would be tough. They'd have to catch both the Miami Heat and the Indiana Pacers with only, what are there, 6 games left or 7 games left for the Sixers?
6, yeah. I believe 6, yeah.
So that's tough. But if they do, in fact, stay in the top 8, which I think is very realistic, and they win the play-in game, whether as a 7th seed or an 8th seed, they would become the 7, most likely playing the Bucks in round 1. If that was to happen, how do you think this team matches up against Milwaukee?
Honestly, I think really good. And I know people might call me crazy, but look at how the Bucks downfall is right now. And I know it's just the end of the regular season, but when you look at this team and you look at the playoffs and how they've been coached, coaching is going to matter in a game like the Milwaukee Bucks. And I think that Nick Nurse has the edge over Doc Rivers, if I'm going to be honest with you. We've seen the downfall of Doc in the playoffs. Sixers people, you've seen it a little bit too much, you know, front and center. But I think that I'm confident in a Bucks matchup. You know, I know that Giannis is going to go off, but you're telling me that Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, Kelly Oubre, and Buddy Hield, those 4 guys cannot beat the Milwaukee Bucks and Doc Rivers. I think they have a really, really good shot. I honestly think that could be one of the best case scenarios if you look at it. And I know it's the Milwaukee Bucks, but I look at their downfall right now. I look at the team chemistry in terms of how they're playing. I know they have Damian Lillard, but guess what? I don't care. You got Doc Rivers as a head coach. And I know people are going to say, this is the NBA. Coaching doesn't matter. It most certainly does. And Nick Nurse knows how to coach in the playoffs. I'm confident about it. It's not going to be a sweep. I think it goes 6 games, but I would take the Sixers in that matchup.
You mentioned the coaching, and that's the one X factor that I'm excited to see once this team fully gets healthy and gets together, because we still have not seen this Sixers lineup play together. Joel did play on Tuesday night, but Tyrese Maxey was out. Right. So can Nick Nurse get all of these pieces playing at a very high level? We saw him do it in 2019 when the Toronto Raptors went to the NBA Finals and won The starting five only played about 55 minutes together. So I'm with you, and I don't expect this to happen, but I have hope that there's a chance when you've added Joel back to this. Well, let's go. I just jumped forward to potentially their first series matchup. Let's talk about the play-in game, because most likely it's going to be against Miami or the Pacers, and it's either going to be in Philly, in Miami, or in Indiana. But if you had your choice for one game, would you rather see the Sixers play the Heat or the Pacers?
Definitely the Pacers. And it's no knock to the Pacers. I just think that Miami not only has the skill, Miami, no matter what. I was talking to some Celtics fans the other day, and they said, I do not want Miami in the first round of the playoffs. And you know why? The Celtics are probably going to win that matchup. But the thing is, Miami is so physical. And the last thing you want is a super physical game going into the first round of the playoffs, especially with Joel Embiid just coming back. Miami Heat, they're always going to give you everything. And to me, not that Indiana is bad. I think they're a very skilled team, and they could catch the Sixers by surprise. But Miami's going to out-physical them. They're going to out-physical the Sixers. That worries me a little bit, especially when Joel Embiid's just coming back. You still have a play-in game. And then, oh, by the way, right after that, it's the first round of the playoffs, and you're not the favorite. You're not going to have that home court advantage. So I'm taking Indiana all day, if I'm going to be honest with you. And it's no slack to them. I've liked what they've done this year. But at the same time, I mean, Miami, they're just so physical, and you don't want to see that in a play-in game.
And we know Jimmy Buckets turns it up to a different level every single playoff. So we'll see what happens there. But I'll tell you, though, and I know you're a big Halliburton fan, the Pacers scare me because I think Halliburton could just go nuts for them in a series or in a one-game play-in, I mean.
Yeah, he definitely can. I mean, I've seen him in person this year, and I love the way that he plays. He's absolutely fantastic. But I think you look at the Sixers right now and you say, okay, offense to offense. You know, Halliburton's not going to bring that stand-up defense, but what can the Sixers bring offensively? And in that matchup, it's 100% Joel Embiid, but it's also Tyrese Maxey, and it's also Kelly Oubre. And oh, by the way, Buddy Hield and Joel Embiid haven't played together yet until now, Joel coming back from his injury. So, you know, not that the Sixers have more weapons. I think the Pacers have better weapons when you look at it on the court, but I also think that the Sixers have just as much scoring when you look at it. And to me, Halliburton is not a worry on defense. He might put up 45 to 50 points, yeah, but you also have Sixers players that can combine for the same thing. So I'm not saying I'm not worried. I'm not saying that, you know, I want to face Halliburton in the play-in tournament, but if I had to choose, and you're talking about a game that you can trade offense for offense versus having to out physical, having to ground and pound completely throughout the game, I'm going to take Indiana Pacers.
Well, we'll see what shakes out. So it should be a fun couple of weeks until the play-in. Big game tonight, Miami, in Miami. We still don't know if Joel, Tobias, Tyrese, or Mo Bamba are going to play, but this could go a long way to maybe staying out of that play-in tournament, but even still maybe getting home court for that one game. Let's jump over to the Fightin' Phils, because I know you're a 4-for-4. We've never done baseball talk, you and I, on the show before. But first of all, did you see that idiot, Bill Colarulo, tweet out the other day, should we be concerned about Bryce Harper? I don't know what he was thinking. And then Bryce hits 3 home runs, 6 RBIs. How good is Bryce?
He's so good, and I think he might have used that tweet as a little bit of fuel going out there at CBP. But you know what's crazy? You watch that game, right? And I have Joel Embiid on one TV, Bryce Harper on the other TV, and I said the city just needed Embiid to come back, and then everything would start to click. I love Bryce Harper. I think that he really loves this city and what he's been able to bring, and that's the Bryce Harper that we're used to seeing throughout his career as well. Stepping up, getting the grand slams, getting the big home runs, 6 RBIs in the game. I mean, he is just so good, and I love how he plays. And this is the thing. The game of baseball is such a mental game. It's such a long season. So you're going to have players go through slumps. It's just how it is. It's the game. Unfortunately, you hope it's not during the playoffs or later in the season, but I think that's just the game of baseball. And maybe Bryce didn't start out the season the way that he wanted to, but it's still so early on. So in my mind, I said, he's okay. It's going to be fine. Let's just see what he can do. And, you know, he's been moved around in terms of fielding as well, you know, playing at first right now. So with Bryce Harper, I loved it. I was going crazy seeing Joel score a bucket and Bryce Harper hit a grand slam. I was just so happy that one night. It's one that I'll never forget. But, you know, he is such a good player and perfect for this city. I love him on the Philadelphia Phillies. The pitching needs to get a little bit better. The managing needs to get a little bit better. But, I'm confident in Bryce Harper for his leadership and what he's able to do out there.
So I'm getting called out in the chat by my man, I'm Awake, Are You, saying that I need to make up my mind about Bryce Harper. I need to clarify something here. My fiance thinks I have a crush on Bryce Harper because I love the guy so much. What I said in my tweet wasn't that Bryce Harper stunk. What I said was, should we be concerned about Bryce Harper? And I cited the stats from spring training where he went 5 of 28, cited his stats through the first 3 games where he was 0 for 11. And then I said he also didn't get the ball in the air at all during spring training. So is something off? Not that he stinks. Never said that. Bryce Harper is unbelievable. And if anyone deserves to win a World Series in a Philadelphia Phillies uniform, it's Bryce. Mm-hmm. Call me a bandwagon. I'm awake. Get me all fired up with Kayla here today. But are you concerned at all, Kayla, about that bullpen? They were rated by MajorLeagueBaseball.com the best bullpen in baseball, and then to start the season, they've struggled a little bit. Are you concerned?
I'm always concerned about the bullpen, and I think, it's a consistent story every single year. But, when you look at it, I think I like how the pitching has been managed right now. You look at the first game with Zach Wheeler, everybody was really, really upset how early he got pulled, and that's been the narrative, right? You look back at the Phillies teams from 2008, for example. You look at Cole Hamels, the setup pitcher, and Ryan Madsen, and then Brad Lidge coming in to close the game. That's not how baseball is played anymore. You see these pitchers maybe going 6-7 innings, maybe if they have a good day. But, you're talking about pitchers in their first real games of the season. They're just getting their arms warmed up. By the way, the weather is also crap out there. It rains every other day. We're in a rainforest somehow in Philadelphia. And you look at it and it's cold. You don't want any source of injury. So I think right now, to me, I think you look at the bullpen, you say, okay, they're coming in probably a little bit earlier than they anticipated because of how the pitching is being managed right now in terms of them pulling the starters a little bit earlier than they probably want to due to the weather conditions, making sure that they, don't overuse them early in the season. So I'm worried about it. I feel like I'm always worried about the bullpen, but I think give it a few weeks, allow these starting pitchers to really get in some type of rhythm. Hopefully the weather warms up because I can't imagine going out there in this frigid weather when it's raining and miserable and having to pitch through 7-8 innings. I mean, I wouldn't want to do it, but you look at it, I think you give it a few more weeks and then you really start to worry. Once again, I think the minor collapse right now is the fact that these pitchers aren't going the length that they need them to. The bullpen's coming in a little bit early, and that can definitely be a cause for chaos. So talk to me in 3 weeks, and then I might still be worried because I feel like I've been worried about the bullpen for the last 5 years.
It's a long season. It is a marathon. And Kevin Donahue on TikTok is saying Castellanos blaming the out-of-town scoreboard on his hitting. So funny.
I saw that. Yeah.
Did he blame it on his hitting or his fielding? I thought he said he had a hard time fielding with it. Is he blaming it his hitting?
No, I think it was fielding. I was gonna say I saw it on Twitter this morning, and I think it was fielding. I don't know. Maybe he said something else about hitting as well, but yeah, I think Casty, is a jokester when it comes to that because what are you going to do? I mean, you can't really blame a scoreboard, but I think that, he definitely kind of made a case for, it blinding his sight or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I saw my man Ricky Patalico on the postgame last night, and he was like puzzled by why that would affect you. He's like, the scoreboard's behind you. So how is that affecting your fielding? When the ball comes off the bat, you're reading it in front of you. The scoreboard isn't in your vision at all. But let me know, Kevin Donahue, if you're on TikTok, let me know if you saw him complain about it affecting his hitting as well. All right, before we get to the Eagles, we're going 4 for 4 today. Philadelphia Flyers in a playoff push. They were number 3 in the Metro since January 24th. They fall out of it. Now they're back in it only by a point. But Washington has 2 games in hand.
Yeah.
Need your opinion right now. Do the Philadelphia Flyers make the playoffs?
It's so tough because wouldn't it be awesome if they can make a playoff push, bring that playoff hockey atmosphere back to Philadelphia? I think with Washington kind of being on the outside looking in right now, their odds aren't in their favor, but I'm going to be positive today. It's been, good momentum around Philadelphia. I'm going to say the Flyers are going to make the playoffs. I don't think that they're going to go that far, but hey, bring that playoff atmosphere back to Philadelphia. Playoff hockey is one of the best in all sports, second best to me personally, besides MLB. I think MLB playoffs are the best. And then hockey, I mean, the atmosphere is electric. Philadelphia needs it. So I think they can sneak in there. I don't think that they're going to go very, very far. You know, they've been really up and down, and I think choking towards the end of the season doesn't help because you want to have momentum going into the playoffs. But yeah. I think I'm going to be positive. I'm going to say they're going to sneak in there, and we're going to see some playoff hockey.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to be frustrated with them because they've exceeded all expectations this year, and they've played really, really well. I selfishly want playoff hockey because I want to be down there. I want to experience it again. It's been too long since you've had that energy in the building. But more importantly, I'd love to see this team get that playoff experience because you do have a lot of young guys and you're trying to build this core that's hopefully going to compete for a championship in the next 2 years, next 2 to 3 seasons. You can't replicate playoff experience. So that's what I really want to see them get in. If they get in, we're playing with house money. I'm not going to be concerned if they do lose in the first series, but they could. I mean, anything can happen in the playoffs, especially if you get a hot goaltender. The way this team blocks shots, I think that they hit a wall, but this rest hopefully has helped. Tortorella talked yesterday about, hey, listen, a lot of people are saying we're young, we shouldn't be here. Well, get over it. We're here.
Yeah.
Let's get going now. So I'm excited to watch the last couple weeks of the season. The fact that it's April 4th, Kayla, and we're talking about Flyers games that matter.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. And I agree with you. I think, getting into the playoffs and, even if they don't go far, they're a young team. And you look at it and you say, okay, well, next year you bring some of those guys back, the core guys back, and you have guys that now have playoff experience. And you really want to be able to get into the playoffs because guess what? It's hockey. It's NHL playoffs. Anything can happen. That's why I love the NHL and the MLB because I feel like for MLB, for example, a wild card can come in and go to the World Series and win the World Series. NHL, you can have teams that really, really surprise you. It's not as much planned out in the NBA and the NFL. So anything can happen. I don't think that they're going to go super far, but you never know. They could pick up some steam if they have to get there, if they can get there.
Yeah, we just have a lot of hope right now. We got hope for the Flyers. We got hope for the Sixers, but no guarantees. And we have hope that the Phillies in a long season can get back their mojo, which I think they will. I think that they'll make the playoffs. It's just I was kind of hopeful that they were going to win the NL East, and the Braves are just so good. We'll see what happens over the next few weeks. But let's talk Eagles real quick before I let you out of here. Friday last week, announcement comes, the news dump Friday afternoon that they're trading Haason Reddick for a third-round draft pick, not this year, not next year, the year after that could potentially be a second-round pick. I wasn't a fan of the trade. I'm still not a fan of the trade. What are your thoughts?
I'm not. I understand why they did it because he wanted to get paid, but I made a video. You trade Haason Reddick for essentially a bag of chips. Kind of how do you do that after Howie Roseman has had a fantastic offseason? There are some decent edge rushers in the draft right now, the one from UCLA. So maybe that's where they're looking, but I don't know how you're really going to replace Haason Reddick. To me, I think it's a huge loss. You didn't get a lot back. You look at the Jets outside, that was the player that we got as well. I think that he's a good player, and I was excited about him with the addition of Haason Reddick, not without Haason Reddick. So to me, you look at it right now and you say, okay, where does this Eagles team really go? Defense, they're a little bit young in certain areas. You have some veterans that aren't going to be able to get a lot of snaps. I'm worried about it a little bit, if I'm going to be honest. I understand why they needed to let him go, and I totally get it. You want to be able to have some money, but, I think it's a big loss, and I think the Eagles are really, really going to see it once the season starts.
Yeah, I agree with you. I really liked everything they have done to start the offseason, but I liked it when you thought you also had Haason Reddick
right
in the edge rushing room. But now we got the draft in a couple weeks, so we'll see what shakes there. But what do you think? You look at this team right now. I don't need a player you want, but a position. Where would you like to see them go in the draft in the first round? What position you want to see them address?
You know what I'm going to say? It's going to be linebacker, but they're not going to do it. So
they will not.
They will not do it. I would love to see it. I wouldn't be surprised if they go corner because we've talked about this a lot, or safety. You look at CJ Gardner-Johnson coming back. You still have Darius Slay, but you look at the rest of those guys in that secondary. I wouldn't be surprised if they go defense. I think there's a lot of good secondary players this year in the draft. My only problem with that is you already have a young secondary. We saw it last year. You know, these guys weren't coached to be ready to play out there, but they also really weren't ready. I mean, they're rookies trying to make up for a lot of different injuries that happened for the Philadelphia Eagles. So that's the only worrisome that I have if you go to the draft and you try to get a secondary piece. I would like it, though. I know you were talking about tight ends earlier, and the guy that we want is probably not going to drop as low. But if it does, I think you do go tight end there. You know, edge rusher could also be a possibility. I mentioned the guy from UCLA that I really, really like. I don't know if they're going to go there, though. To me, what I think Howie Roseman, I'm putting on my cap, being in that war room throughout the draft. I don't know why. I have a feeling he's going to go secondary. I don't love it. Of course, I want them to go linebacker. But for me right now, I think they go secondary, especially with getting CJ back. You look at it and you say, okay, who's going to be behind him? Sidney Brown's not going to be 100%, even if he's going to be ready for the start of the season. He's coming off a really, really big injury. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go secondary. I'm not going to love it because I don't want another young guy back there if somebody gets hurt and it's just a bunch of young rookies or second-year players. But I think that's where they go because they're definitely not going to go linebacker. We all know that.
Yeah, and if you look, Howie Roseman, I was talking before you came on, has picked 13 times in the first round. He's never taken a corner in the first round. The Eagles, we know, haven't done it in 22 years since they took Lito and then went Sheldon Brown and then went Michael Lewis. They went all in on it. But Howie Roseman's never taken a corner. In fact, the position he's drafted the most has been edge rusher. He's also never taken a linebacker in the first round. Not a surprise. But I wouldn't be surprised if they go edge rusher. And I would really not be surprised if they go offensive line because that's just how they like to build teams. And I wouldn't be mad. It wouldn't be the sexy pick, but I wouldn't be mad. But Kayla, appreciate you as always. Thanks for changing up the schedule this week for us. But the fans would have been disappointed. The Power Hour crew would have been disappointed if we didn't get to hear from Kayla this week.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on today. And hopefully next week we're talking about more Sixers, possibly getting the 6th seed. We'll see what the rumors for the Eagles are, the Flyers as well, and the Phillies. So it's a fun time to be around Philadelphia sports right now. I can't lie. And, you know, the Final Four happening Friday, Saturday in college basketball. So sports are the best thing right now. And I said this the other day. I said, I'm so lucky to be able to work in sports, especially during times like this, because I'm just on the edge of my seat every single day when the news is going to drop, when the games are going to happen. It's so much fun. And I look forward to talking about it next week. Hopefully all good things.
Awesome, Kayla. Well, you have a great weekend. We'll talk soon.
Have a good one.
Kayla Santiago always does a great job. We know her knowledge with the Sixers, but she could talk 4 for 4. Even got a little WNBA, some women's college basketball in there. So great job by Kayla, as always. But, yeah, I know a lot of people. I see you in the chat talking about what position you want to see the Philadelphia Eagles go in the draft. And right now on TikTok, Danger Dubs checking in. First round just feels like offensive line. If they can go grab a guy that can play right guard and be a future right tackle, it's smart. And Danger Dubs is spot on because if they do draft an offensive lineman at 22, it's got to be a lineman that has versatility. You're not going to take a guy that's probably just a guard. They're going to have the ability to maybe move outside and play tackle, maybe even have that versatility to play center. Hopefully you don't need him because Cam Jurgens can step in there. But I think it'll tell us a lot about how they feel about Tyler Steen. If they do, in fact, draft a first-round draft pick at the offensive line, maybe they're not sold on Tyler Steen right now to fit that right guard and take over for Cam Jurgens, who's going to slide over to center. So it'll be interesting. But I wouldn't be angry at the offensive line. My concern, though, is you look at these edge rushers, although Howie's taken 4 edge rushers in the first round, well, Brandon Graham, late blossom. Marcus Smith, bust. Derek Barnett, bust. As a first-round draft pick, it's not an overstatement to say he was a bust. And then you got Nolan Smith at 2023, who still a question mark on. So not sure I have confidence that they can draft an offensive lineman. He's good at drafting D tackles. That's the one area we know. But I doubt they go D tackle again in the draft, but who knows? But he's drafted 3 D tackles, Fletcher Cox, Jordan Davis, who we still have that question mark on, and Jalen Carter. But he can draft D tackles, and he's done some good jobs of drafting D tackles later on in the draft. So we will see. Quick announcement, there will be no Power Hour tomorrow. Unfortunately, I have other obligations tomorrow that I have to attend to in Bala Cynwyd. But I should be back here on Monday, so I'll keep you updated. But make sure you're following on Twitter so I can update you on where and when we'll be places. But no Power Hour tomorrow, unfortunately. So I hope everybody has a great, great weekend. You know where you could find me all weekend long. So make sure you keep it here, though, JAKIB Sports. You got my man Big Sills coming in at 2 o'clock today. But like we end every Power Hour, with a little today in sports history. So April 4th, 1974, Hank Aaron tied Babe Ruth with 714 home runs in Cincinnati. April 4th, 1974. If you ever read anything about it, you know there was a lot of heat on Hank Aaron, a lot of racist people coming out, making death threats and everything else about him catching Babe Ruth. But not only did he catch him with 714 home runs, he went on to hit 755 home runs, which was the most in Major League Baseball, until hulked out Barry Bonds came in and said, I see your 755, and hit 762. But our today in sports history, April 4th, 1974, Hank Aaron tied Babe Ruth with 714 home runs. Everybody hit that like button, hit that share button for me on your way out. Appreciate you spending this hour with me. I know you have other options for your sports talk, so it really means a lot to me that you choose this hour to spend with me. Have a great weekend, and as always, go Birds.